Welcome to Walking Word Podcast. Today we're going to start in Philippians chapter 2. Now Philippians chapter 2 has a somewhat familiar passage, and it says in verse 12 of chapter 2, "Now, my dear brothers and sisters, just as you have always obeyed, not only in my presence, but also in my absence, even more so in my absence, continue to work out your salvation with awe and reverence." Some translations have fear and trembling. But what that is saying is not what some people make it out to be. That does not mean we get to decide how salvation looks. We don't get to decide what salvation looks like for us because we're working out our salvation. That doesn't mean we can't be corrected because we are working out our salvation. You can't tell me what my salvation looks like. I have seen this scripture twisted to say that, well, if you try other religions, it's okay because you're working out your salvation. I can discount that immediately by saying Paul starts this in verse 12 by saying that they have been obeying his commands, not only when he's there, but when he's gone. And we have a bunch of his commands written down. So we know that when it says continue, that means that what they were doing, they need to keep doing. And they were obeying Paul's commands. That's how they were working out their salvation. That would be the same for us. Now, I want to clarify working out because it's a Greek word there called katergizomai. And that word does not mean to decide for yourself. It doesn't. What that word means is to make one fit for a task, to bring forth results, to do something that renders results. So what he's saying, if we do the long version of this, is, dear friends, you've obeyed when I'm here, you've obeyed when I'm gone. So continue to produce results and make yourself fit for salvation by listening to what I have to say. That's the layman's term version of what he's saying. So this discounts any ability of somebody to say, oh, well, you can't tell me what to do because I'm working myself out. That's what Paul says. Now I'm going to continue to discount that by going to Galatians chapter 6 here in a sec, because some might say, well, that was Paul the Apostle. So if there's somebody in authority over me, then they can correct me. But not any old Joe Blow can correct me. And we're going to go ahead and say outright that is incorrect. If we go to Galatians chapter 6, we're going to see that he clarifies this very, very well. He says, brothers and sisters, again, giving both credit for all members of the body. If a person is discovered, this is in chapter 6, verse 1. Brothers and sisters, if a person is discovered in some sin, you who are spiritual, restore such a person in a spirit of gentleness. Now I want to stop right there. You who are spiritual. Let's talk about that for a second. Being spiritual is like being cool, funny, or tough. You don't get to decide that for yourself. Other people can decide and tell you that you're funny, that you're tough, that you're cool. But you don't get to say that you're cool, tough, or funny. Being spiritual should come from not you, but guess who? Those in authority over you. That's who being spiritual should come from. You don't decide that for yourself. Let them decide that. Now, when we talk about those in authority, I'm going to give you an example. My pastor in my younger days, in my 20s, I would go to him and say, oh, pastor, they're doing this. These people are doing this, whatever this is in the body. And I'm going to go correct them. I'm going to take care of it. I'm a prophet, and by God, I'm going to tell them the word, and I'm going to let them know how wrong they are and how they can correct it. And he would ever so gently tell me, well, Jason, I'll take care of it. You don't have to worry about it. I'll go talk to them. And I say, you see what they're doing, don't you? He said, yeah, I do see what they're doing, and I'll go ahead and I'll talk to them. Now, what he was saying in a roundabout way was, I wasn't spiritual yet, spiritual enough. And when you say, well, spiritual enough for what? The second part, to restore them with what? A spirit of gentleness. You see, I was rough. I was hard. I would say it like it is. And by God, I'm a prophet, so I would just tell them, rip into them. And I would hurt so many people, all in the name of good, in the name of correction, in the name of the church. But I was hurting people because I had not yet learned how to be gentle, how to be merciful with it, how to be kind. And so I simply did it as I wanted to do it. And my pastor recognized that. And to save people from getting destroyed by me, he would do it himself and tell me, no, I got it. It took me a long time to understand that that's what he was doing. But I want you to understand that when we talk about being spiritual, if you have in the body those in authority at your local body, those should be the ones that are deciding whether you're spiritual or not. Now, if they are following the word, and if they themselves are following Christ and mature, then you don't have to worry about anything. Now, if they're twisting scripture and misusing scripture and all that stuff, that's a different subject. But those in authority should be the ones that are deciding whether you're spiritual or not, because they're seeing a bigger picture typically than what you are as a congregant. Now, that goes with what happens next. Carry one another's burdens, and in this way, verse number 2, you will fulfill the law of Christ. For if anyone thinks he is something when he is nothing, he deceives himself. That's what he's talking about there. That you might think you're spiritual, that you might think that you are amazing in how you are correcting people and bringing them back to the fold. But you could be deceiving yourself, because you could be doing it in a way that's harming them, that they're not receiving, that you're hurting them. You have to be careful. He says, let each one examine, in verse number 4, his own work. Then he can take pride in himself and not compare himself with somebody else, for each one will carry his own load. Now, I want to clarify this too, because there are translations that will say each one must carry his own burden. Right before, though, it says, carry one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. So which is it? Well, I'm going to tell you that in the Greek, those are two different words. Whenever it says carry one another's burdens, that is actually talking about, whenever Paul uses it, a Greek word that means an exceedingly heavy weight. Typically, that's too much for one person to carry. So if you think about something that's so heavy, you need somebody to help you lift it. That's what he's talking about in the first part of this set of verses. That sin is exceedingly heavy and it can wear us down and bring us just to our knees. And those of us need to, that are surrounding those people that are burdened with sin, to lift them up, to help them. That's what we're supposed to do. We're not supposed to kick them while they're down. We're not supposed to condemn them. Oh, see, I knew you were a sinner. I knew you weren't going to make it. That's not what we're supposed to do. That just shows immaturity if you do that. We're supposed to help them and carry with them into this new self that they're trying to get done. Now, the second part of it, that each one must carry his own burden, that word is phortion. That word means, in many cases, it means just like a personal responsibility. And there's even one way it's used where it talks about a Roman soldier's pack, and like that's what their personal responsibility was for their daily carry, is their phortion. That's what it's talking about there. So even though it uses the same English word, it's actually using a different Greek word, and it may be subtle, but it is enough to say that it is not a contradictory statement. It's not. So when it says each one must examine his own work, and that is, what you're supposed to do, what work is he talking about? What's the examining that we're looking at? So in 2 Corinthians chapter, it's going to be 2 Corinthians chapter 10 or 9. I believe it's 10 though. Yeah, in 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 12, he says, "For we would not dare to classify or compare ourselves with some of those who recommend themselves. But when they measure themselves by themselves and compare themselves with themselves, they are without understanding." But that sounds exactly like what Paul just said. He said each one must examine his own work. And then when he does, then you can take pride in it, because you have to, you're responsible for yourself. And now Paul is saying we would never compare ourselves to those that compare themselves to themselves, which sounds like he's contradicting himself. But he's not. And in the next verse, it'll explain why. But I want to point out that what he's saying is a moralistic view, is moralism. That If I'm a better person today than I was yesterday, I'm closer to Christ. If I am sinning less today than I was yesterday, I'm a better Christian. And that's not what Scripture says. That might be a byproduct of the walk that we have, but that's not what Scripture says is our measure. We're not supposed to be creating better versions of ourselves. That's moralism. What we're supposed to be doing is measuring to Christ. That's what we're supposed to be doing. When we talk about being a better version of ourselves, what we're supposed to be saying is I'm more like Christ today than I was yesterday. That is a good statement to have. That is scriptural, because that's what we're supposed to be going into. But in verse 13, he says what the measure is. He says, but we will not boast beyond certain limits, but will confine our boasting according to the limits of the work to which God has appointed us. That's the measure. That's the measure that we're supposed to be going by. When he says in Galatians chapter 6 that we are to measure our own work, we're supposed to inspect our own work, then we can take pride in it because we have our own responsibilities. That is what he's talking about, the work God has given you. And we will use the talent parable as an example. The master comes and Jesus says that he gave one person 5 talents, one person 3, one person 1 talent. And then the master came back. The 5 person had doubled it. The 3 person had done more with it. The 1 talent guy, though, he said he got scared and he buried it. And what did the master do? Furious. The master said, you could have at least put it in the bank and gotten interest on it. And now I'm going to take that talent and give it to somebody else. And then you're going to be kicked out. How does that relate to this? God has given us stewardship over portions of his kingdom. That's what he's done. We have a responsibility, and it's not ours. Whenever in Hebrews, he says that you will cease from your own works. When you enter into his rest, you'll cease from your own works. Well, whose works are we supposed to be doing then? The works that God has appointed us to. That's what we're supposed to be doing. God has given us stewardship over his kingdom. And whether it's a large portion of the kingdom or a small portion, it's still ours, and we have to do something with it. We can't simply hold on to it until the day of salvation comes, and now we've made it to the end. That's not what we're supposed to be doing at all. And this should relieve some people. I would hope that this is encouraging, because what I've seen people do is they look at somebody else that's really got it together and they go, oh man, I just wish I could be like them. I wish I could walk there. I wish I could have their walk. No. They've been given something and they're having to be stewards over it. You have your own thing. And the great thing is God knows us better than we know ourselves. So if he gives us 1 talent, 1 small portion, that means he trusts us with it and that he knows we can handle it. And if we are obedient and if we are continually working at it, but not our working at it, but working at his task, what he's given us, then we're going to grow and he's going to give us more and more and more. But when we struggle with what we already have, why would he give us more? If we can barely be responsible for what we have, why would he give us more? That's not how that works. The kingdom doesn't work like that. And that's what Jesus was trying to say in the parable. And that's what Paul is trying to explain here in all these different verses. So I hope that that's encouraging to you, because it should relieve you of having to measure to somebody else's standard. Your measure is not somebody else's standard. God has given you something. That's your measure. Work that. Do that. I hope it's encouraging to you. And there's a longer version of this that I have on the podcast. This is one of my old sermons that I did. So I hope you give it a listen, and maybe you'll go visit that one too. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. And again, just be encouraged. God's giving you something. Big or small, it doesn't matter. It's just what you do with it. God bless you guys.